When the first bulldozers rolled onto his land, Marcus Reed thought it was a mistake. His grandfather had left him over 100 acres of prime real estate on the edge of Willow Creek, land that had been in his family for generations. The oak trees stood tall like silent guardians, and the soil was rich with stories of struggle and pride. Marcus, a quiet man in his 40s and a civil engineer by trade, had no plans to sell it. He wanted to restore the old farmhouse, plant some pecan trees, and live peacefully. But one morning, the peace was shattered by the roar of machines and men wearing vests with the HOA's logo on them. He drove down the dirt path, dust flying behind his truck, and stopped in front of the group of workers who were laying stakes and unloading equipment. "You must be lost," he said calmly, stepping out with his coffee still in hand. The site supervisor barely looked up. "We've got authorization from the Willow Creek Development Association," he replied. "This is Phase 3 construction. Roads and foundations go in this week." Marcus frowned. "Authorization from who?" "Because this land is mine." The man gave a short, dismissive laugh. "Not anymore, buddy. You can take that up with the HOA." Marcus walked the property line, confusion quickly turning into disbelief. They had already cleared dozens of acres, cutting down trees, marking future lots, and setting up construction trailers. He went home, pulled out the deed his father had given him, and stared at it for hours. It was airtight. His name, his grandfather's signature, and a long legal description of the property boundaries were all right there. Yet when he called the county records office, the clerk hesitated. "Mr. Reed," she said quietly, "your parcel's ownership was transferred last year, to the Willow Creek Development Association." Marcus froze. "Transferred? By who?" The clerk's voice faltered. "It says by administrative correction." That phrase echoed in his mind. He knew it wasn't a correction, it was theft. He tried to meet with the HOA board, but every time he asked for an appointment, they brushed him off. "There must be a misunderstanding," they said with fake smiles, assuring him their lawyers would look into it. But weeks turned into months, and construction only sped up. Streets were paved, foundations poured, model homes opened, real estate agents gave tours on the weekends, calling it the Meadows at Willow Creek, luxury living by the lake. Marcus drove by one day and saw a huge sign showing the planned community, 96 homes, playgrounds, and a community center, all sitting squarely on the land his family had bled to keep. Neighbors whispered that Marcus was overreacting. "It's progress," one told him. "You should be glad your land is being put to good use." But Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't chain himself to a tree or protest at the gate. He did something far more unnerving. He watched. He documented every truck, every building permit, every acre developed. He took photos, videos, and drone footage. He hired a surveyor, a retired county engineer who confirmed that the entire development was built on Marcus's legal property lines. Marcus thanked him, paid cash, and said nothing. When the HOA broke ground on the final phase, the grand clubhouse overlooking the lake, the board threw a ribbon-cutting ceremony. There were cameras, champagne glasses, and speeches about community and vision. Marcus stood at the edge of the crowd, unnoticed, wearing his old army jacket and a calm smile. By then, the homes were nearly all sold. Families had moved in. Kids rode their bikes on streets that still technically bore his name. The HOA president, a man named Richard Connors, gave a grand speech about how Willow Creek had turned empty land into prosperity. Marcus clapped politely, knowing he was about to turn that prosperity inside out. 2 weeks later, he walked into the county courthouse with a black folder in his hand. Inside it were copies of his grandfather's original deed, property tax receipts from decades ago, updated surveys, and a title report he'd ordered himself. The clerk barely looked up as he filed his lawsuit, Reed vs. Willow Creek Development Association. He didn't just sue for land recovery. He sued for damages, trespassing, and unjust enrichment. The HOA didn't take it seriously at first. They thought it was some bitter man wasting time. Their lawyers tried to get it dismissed, claiming the transfer had been legally processed. But Marcus had something they didn't expect, proof that the administrative correction was based on a forged signature from a former county official already under investigation. When the first court hearing came, the HOA arrived with 3 lawyers in $1,000 suits. Marcus came alone, holding that same black folder. The judge asked him if he had counsel, and Marcus replied, "I represent myself for now, Your Honor. I just need you to see this." He handed over the original deed, yellowed with age but sealed and notarized, and the courtroom fell silent. The judge studied it for a long moment, then turned to the HOA's attorneys. Gentlemen, she said slowly, this document predates your client's claim by nearly 70 years. You have some explaining to do. Over the next few months, depositions revealed everything. The HOA's Land Acquisition Committee had, accidentally, redrawn parcel boundaries during a zoning update, claiming the Reed property was unclaimed land. They'd then used that map to secure development loans, insurance, and permits. Every home, every street, every inch of the meadows had been built on land they did not legally own. When the news broke, it spread fast. Homeowners panicked, realizing their new houses might sit on someone else's property. The HOA board tried to negotiate a settlement, offering Marcus money, land swaps, even a spot on the board. He refused every offer. In court, Marcus stayed calm while their lawyers squirmed. He never raised his voice or gloated. But when the judge asked if he had anything else to say, he stood, opened his folder once more, and pulled out the original deed. Your Honor, he said quietly, this is all I ever needed. They built 96 homes on my family's land without asking. I let them finish, because I wanted the world to see what happens when greed replaces respect. The judge nodded solemnly. Mr. Reed, she said, I believe justice is about to catch up with them. And as the ruling came down, ordering the HOA and its developers to compensate him for every square foot, with penalties and damages totaling millions, Marcus just sat there, hands folded, watching the same people who had ignored him now scramble to protect what wasn't theirs. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. Because deep down, he knew the land had always been his. And no amount of steel or concrete could change that truth.